Mandalorian, and I am the Whiskey Jedi himself. Welcome back to another live episode of the podcast today. This might become a little bit more of a regular thing on this channel, and or for the show, I should say. And for all of you who have joined me, whether you're watching live or on the replay, thank you so much for joining me today on this fine Thursday afternoon. And another Mandalorian rewatch. I'm very excited here to do a Chapter 2, The Child, of the first season of The Mandalorian. Last week went great. I caught myself with the lag last week. I figured out the solution, and we're ready to go for today for the second episode of the first season. And joining me today to do that, no, it's not a person today, as and there will be some fellow friends of the show to join me on some of these episodes, but joining me today is PB&W Whiskey, Peanut Butter Whiskey, and I'm very excited because it's the first whiskey that I'm bringing back on the show after highlighting it a number of weeks ago for my fourth episode. I want to say I covered some solo stuff going on, and I'm bringing it back. And there's a reason why. The second episode of the first season of Mandalorian is a very underrated episode, in my opinion. It's very, very good, and I thoroughly enjoy it. It has a lot of meaning, especially towards the end of the season, obviously, with some specific things that go on in those final episodes. Excuse me. But the reason I chose... Oh, goodness. Excuse me. All right. So with that out of the way, the reason why I chose this whiskey is because, one, I can really watch this episode without any distractions, knowing that I've already kind of highlighted the main things about this whiskey. I'll talk about it a little bit, obviously. But I get to lay back and kind of watch the episode without worrying about highlighting the whiskey too much, because I can always send you guys back to the other episode. But the biggest reason why is because it's a flavored whiskey that not just allows you to have a little bit of fun with it, but it's different from what I've been trying the last couple weeks. I've been doing a lot of bourbons lately, some scotches in there as well. Not that they don't have flavors, but this is a flavorful drink, right? It's peanut butter whiskey, and so I wanted to bring that back and have a little bit of fun with it. And so yeah, we're gonna be talking about, and I'll go ahead and pop the bottle up right here for you guys. You guys can see it right there on the left hand side of the screen, but as I'm getting a text saying drink some water because I'm coughing, I apologize, but no worries. This is the bottle. Very, very cool. Obviously, the carnival bag of some peanuts there is the style, which is really cool. And that's what it goes for, not just in look, but also flavor. So we'll be talking about that just like the last episode. I'll stop halfway through the episode and talk about the whiskey as far as, where it's from, what it tastes like, et cetera, especially since I already kind of talked about it already. But the episode, this is one of the shortest episodes of the season, if not the shortest. And so I'll stop about the 15-minute mark to talk about the whiskey a little bit. If I feel the need to talk about it beforehand, I will definitely do so. But for now, let's go ahead and pour a glass of this. And if you are watching and have some whiskey on the side as well, this is the perfect time to do so. The solution that I came up with as far as watching this is I'm no longer streaming it alongside my recording processor here on the computer. I'm just going to be watching on the iPad. You're not going to be able to hear it, obviously, because of some YouTube rules. But I'll be able to listen. I have my earbuds in here. You can see those. I'll be able to listen to myself to the episode, even though it's an episode that isn't really chock full of dialogue. So with that said, I'll take a drink and, I'll do a little backstory in the whiskey as far as what it says on the back of the bottle, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more afterwards. Yeah, see, I've been doing so much bourbon lately and scotch that it's the perfect little flavor pack, I'll say. So what the back of the bottle says here is a balancing act of smooth peanut butter flavor with premium whiskey. As the ultimate blend of two beloved icons, American icons, PB&W is the new ringmaster of flavored whiskey. Enjoy it neat, blend it into a delicious cocktail. Enjoy it neat or blend it into a delicious cocktail. We brought the whiskey, you bring the jam. Yeah, I mean, obviously going for that fun carnival theme there, but just a fun whiskey that I highly recommend. Hey, let's get ready, man. Thanks for joining. Fellow friends in the Schmodown world, as I run that Schmodown podcast, Certain Point of View. Thanks for popping in, Shug. Appreciate it. Gabs, thank you. Much appreciated. Cheers. Yes, cheers. Yeah, so let's go ahead and dive into The Mandalorian episode 2. Let's get into this episode. Episode's titled The Child. We get the first official look at the child outside of the tease of the first episode. And so I'm super excited. And like I mentioned, I'll stop around the 15-minute mark to kind of dive into the flavors of this whiskey and what I really think of it. And so with that all said, I'm currently at 000 here on the clock. And I'll click play in 3, 2, 1. Disney Plus logo popping up. Previously on Mandalorian. I won't skip it just for the sake of everyone being caught up and knowing where I am. It's been fun. I've only done this for one episode so far, but going back and watching this series after not seeing it for nearly a year is pretty incredible. You know, and like I had mentioned last time, knowing here, and I'll throw this backwards so you can see my face more. And knowing like all the behind the scenes work that happens in this show and seeing the Disney gallery, it's pretty cool to go back and watch it all come together after knowing all of that. The child. Whew. So excited. All right. So the intro's popping up. We got Lucasfilm logo popping up for those of you who are catching up here. And I see I have 3 viewers live right now. 4 viewers now. Thank you so much for joining me live. I appreciate it. I might do live a little bit more often here on the channel for the show, especially if you guys are down to watch The Mandalorian with me. So it's crazy. Going back, and of course, practical effects we hear with the monsters. Not monsters, but creatures. I mean, that creature just looks incredible. But I had mentioned the Disney gallery and then the theme, of course. The Disney gallery, how one of the highlights of that show or the docuseries was this specific scene, how they set this up and how he's literally standing in a stage and they're setting all of the shadows and everything like that around him with a backdrop on a screen. It's pretty incredible. And they even talked about how they had to create this shadow effect in Mando's helmet for the Trandoshans that are up top chasing him, essentially. If you have not checked out the Gallery series on Disney Plus about the Mando, I can't recommend that show enough. It's absolutely incredible, the work that went into this show. And I think this is the shot right here where you can see him running up top above him in his helmet, the reflection, as it gets really quiet. Yeah, see, there you go. You can see it again with the shadows on the side. And here's the shot of them jumping over the cliff. Yep, right there. Trandoshans, obviously the species of Bosk, the Star Wars famous bounty hunter. And then just Rex Shop coming in. the little of Baby Yoda. Of course, Rick Famuyiwa directing this episode. Director of Dope. Also did episode 6 of this series. Seeing a new power from his rifle, obviously, with the shotgun there. And then the first time we see this glorious piece of action with the disintegration. Oh, it's just so good. And then him finding out that they got trackers as well. And knowing at this point that he is essentially being hunted for taking the child. And then the theme kicks in with the logo. So great. So absolutely great. Thank you for popping in. Whoever just popped in for another viewer. I really, really appreciate it. Our first real look at seeing the child and the practicality of it. And seeing Mando heal himself here a little bit. But also just a great scene here in just a second of him popping out of his crib, understanding what's happening, and going to try to help him. And obviously later we see that there was a reason for that. He has the ability to heal. And that's exactly what he's trying to do here. But at this point, yeah, so we see his little hand reaching out for the very first time. Mando's like, what the hell is going on? And Mando, at this point, we know this in a couple episodes, he doesn't know anything about what the Force is. He doesn't know anything about, what these sensitive people can do with certain abilities. He obviously learns it throughout the series, but or season, I should say. But at this point, he just doesn't know. And it's really cool to see the evolution of that. And it's also really cool here, just looking at the scene itself, of him seeing him work on his own armor as the child comes back into play. So look how tiny he is. FYI, you may hear me call him Tiny, and a reason for that. And this is total kudos to the Resistance broadcast who I listen to. Tiny, this is not Yoda. Such a great acronym for him. So. What's up, Gio? Thanks for popping in, bud. Fellow Apocalypse podcaster with me here. Maybe. I mean, I would think that probably not Monday Night Football, but I would probably even possibly think this weekend, because Star Wars Celebration is going on this weekend, and they obviously want to give fans something that they may have dropped then, and that could very much be a Mandalorian Season 2 trailer. And so I would probably say during the NBA playoffs more so than Monday Night Football. And then, of course, we see him disintegrating Jawas. It's just absolutely glorious. It's so good. And Tiny there just sitting, watching. And I'll talk about this at a later date, at a later episode, but there's a theme throughout their adventures together as far as Tiny, the child, Baby Yoda, whatever you want to call him, witnessing all of these acts by being around the Mandalorian, him shooting people, him getting into fights, him, doing all of these specific acts that result in situations such as the child trying to choke out Cara Dune in a later episode. Like I said, I'll talk about that later on when that episode does come. Just a very cool, and Rick Famuyiwa here doing an incredible job of staying very simple, but elevating what we saw in the first episode. I had said this when we did our official review of this episode last year. This was the Indiana Jones episode of the season. Obviously, this is calling back to the Last Crusade of Indy on the tank, rescuing his father against the Germans. Such a great Easter egg / callback to that scene. And a lot of things in this episode as well. But there's moments throughout the season where it's connecting to past greatness in film or television, this being one of them. And of course, you see Tiny's crib just cruising along, chasing him, which is a cool little shot as well. Just some really great action. And the first time we get to see a Sandcrawler in action, too. I mean, all these times we see the Sandcrawler, whether it be the films or the animated shows, we've never really seen a Sandcrawler in action like this, so it's pretty cool. And also, not to mention, we haven't really seen a Sandcrawler off of Tatooine. And obviously, we see that these Jawas, who are not on Tatooine, have different color eyes. Typically, they're yellow. The Tatooine Jawas, anyway. And these ones are red. Not really sure if we'll really know why or how or whatever, but just a cool little, as he tosses a Jawa off at the Sandcrawler. Just a cool little piece of information for us Star Wars fans. And then this great scene, throwing another one off the side, and then him just being absolutely blasted by a gang of Jawas. And then him just thudding to the ground. Oh. And Tiny have no idea what to do. No idea what he's doing, obviously. Just sticking by Mando's side, thankfully. God. The craftsmanship on Tiny is just remarkable. It's incredible. And seeing the Razor Crest just absolutely destroyed, pulled to pieces. And I'll be honest, I have no idea how he puts it back together. That thing is just torn apart. Wires, sheet metal. I don't know if it's sheet metal, but just metal all over the place, off the ship. And again, as I mentioned up top, not a whole lot of dialogue. No dialogue at this point. But and we'll get some here in a sec. A little growl by Baby Yo. Some great landscape shots here, wide shots. This one specifically of them in the distance as the wind picks up the dust. Him obviously coming to find Queel for some help. And then the first of many of the glorious scenes from Tiny, him chasing the space frogs here. Hey, Brian. Thanks for joining, bud. See you in about an hour and a half. Some POV action. It's just completely swallowing a space frog. Just, wow. Cringeworthy, but also adorable. Man, these blurgs are workhorses. These things are absolute workhorses. Great Mando theme. And then they come find the Jawas, looking to trade back what is could be considered rightfully his. What's up, guys? Shug, yes, sir. Thank you. Ferris, thank you. What's up, man? I'm glad we're on good terms for today, anyway. I'll go ahead and pause the episode here after this sequence, and I'll talk about the whiskey that I have here today. If you are just joining me, thank you again for joining me. See him up a couple of years there. He's like, I gotta give up all my weapons? Like, come on. Little do we know that he's not giving up all his weapons. The glorious scene of the flame-throwing wrist is coming. Hey, Bador. Thank you. Oh, Ferris, that's just not nice. That's just not nice. Yeah, you can't ask Mando to trade his Beskar. Beskar is like home to him. Jawa's laughing at him. You sound like a Wookiee. Great. And then the great flame throwing wrist here is just brilliant. I got an absolute kick out of this scene when I first watched it for the first time, and also realizing that I should have just known that's just a trademark of a Mandalorian. Nick Nolte just doing incredible voice work here. And then we find out the egg. What is the egg? And then the chanting begins. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause right there. I'm at 1512. 1512, it's a shot of the sand crawler for the Jawas. And let's get back to talking a little bit about this whiskey here. So we got PB&W Peanut Butter Flavor Whiskey. I don't think I've mentioned this on this episode. I mentioned it on the last one, but this is one of the favorite whiskeys I have in my arsenal. I have a lot of them, and I know that I haven't done a few of them yet, but the reason why I wanted, and I mentioned this up top, the reason why I wanted to bring this one on today is because it's very easy to talk about, and it's a very fun, different type of whiskey. It's not, it's unique compared to the bourbons and scotches I've been doing lately. And I wanted a little flavor today. And so peanut butter whiskey, it's pretty incredible. And there's a couple reasons why. And so I'm going to talk about the flavoring here just real quick. Let me just go and pull up my notes. Okay, so the aroma of the whiskey. So when you crack open a whiskey bottle, the first thing you're going to notice is the taste of it, right? The smell, excuse me. What is the first thing that hits your nose the second you open that bottle? Because with whiskey, outside of like a lot of, whether it's beer or wines or whatever, when you smell a whiskey, it's actually typically different from when you taste the whiskey. There's definitely some overlapping, but and with this one, truly, there is a lot of difference going on. Obviously, in both the smell and taste, you're gonna get the peanut butter flavor. That's what it goes for. But when you're tasting the whiskey, you actually get hazelnut flavor. I don't know if you've really ever tasted hazelnut flavor until you like get something that's called hazelnut, but it's an incredibly sweet flavor. It's a very, very sweet flavor. And so this one, and a lot of people compare this to, oh my goodness, why am I forgetting the peanut butter whiskey, the popular one? Let's find, I gotta type this in real quick, guys. I'm sorry. And it's going to bug me. Screwball. Screwball is the peanut butter whiskey. So they compare PB&W and Screwball a lot. Now, I will admit that Screwball is much more of a peanut butter flavor. It's not the hazelnutty or sweet flavor like this one is, but this is why I like it so much, because there's not a whole lot of sweet flavored whiskey out there like this. And so when you taste it, you don't really get the peanut butter sensation as much because it's cross blended with something like a hazelnut flavor, which is very interesting. When you smell it though, you're getting more of a vanilla caramel factor into it. And there's a lot of caramel and vanilla in whiskey, but for this one specifically, because they're kind of going for this carnival aspect of whiskey with a fun, vibrant flavor. It's like I mentioned, it's very sweet. It's a very sweet type of flavor. It's not heavy. It's very light. It's a light, taste. But it's also something that kind of sticks with you. And I talked about it either last week or the week before. This is one of the whiskeys that really kind of just sits there and it's like begging you to take another sip, because it has that sweet peanut butter hazelnut flavor to it that is just it doesn't really pack like a punch, like a hard punch, but it packs a flavor punch. In the words of Guy Fieri, it's Flavor Town. It's the heart of Flavor Town for whiskeys, because it's really just a flavorful whiskey. So I cannot recommend it enough. PB&W Peanut Butter Flavor Whiskey, and as I mentioned, you may not taste a lot of peanut butter to it, but it is it definitely packs enough flavor that is peanut butter around the peanut butter flavor. It also has the hazelnut factor and then the typical caramel and vanilla. And it really does give it off a carnival vibe. Like you can see the bottle right there on the left-hand side to see if I can get it right. Left-hand side right there, boom. And then here's the bottle. You can see the carnival style bag of peanuts there. That's what they go for. So when you look at this bottle, it's not bad marketing. Like when you look at it, you're like, okay, carnival, sweet, sugar, that type of stuff. I'm not saying it's sugar, but it has a sweet flavor to it. And so when you look at it and you open it, you're getting exactly what you're going for. And so if you've never had it, if you've never had peanut butter whiskey in general, I highly recommend it. It's probably the best flavor to go with whiskey if you're going to like try things with flavors. Peanut butter is definitely the best blend with any type of whiskey. But the two popular ones out there right now are Screwball and PB&W. I actually prefer this over Screwball for the moment. And a lot of it has to do with that sweet flavor because I don't have anything else like it in my bottles that I have. So PB&W whiskey, peanut butter flavored whiskey. And the one thing I didn't mention is that it's actually it's from a company from Fort Collins, Colorado, which you don't see very much. So Fort Collins, Colorado is where it's from. Obviously a lot of bourbons and whiskeys come from Kentucky and Tennessee and, all those states over there. I did one last week that's here up in NorCal. In Napa Valley, which is really cool, but you don't see a whole lot in the area such as Colorado. So if you're looking for something different to try, I highly recommend, search it on Google or find it at your local store. But PB&W peanut butter flavor whiskey, that's the last time that I'll really talk about it this episode until the very end. I'll show it one more time because I do want to wrap up and get to this final 15 minutes of this episode. But definitely recommend. It's also just a very fun looking bottle. So. But all right, let's get back to The Mandalorian episode 2 here, The Child. I'm at 1512 is where I'm currently at. 1512. It's a shot of a sand crawler. And I will start the episode in 3, 2, and 1. And they're currently chanting the egg as they take Mando to fight the monster that we currently don't have a name to in the episode. Also, really cool here, quickly, we get to see the inside of a sandcrawler. Like, how cool is that? Typically, you would think that maybe it's a little different, right? They're Jawas, but it just looks like a normal vehicle in the Star Wars world, which is interesting. Yeah, and Mando at this point has no idea what he's getting into. Also, thinking about it for the first time, Queel obviously knew what they were talking about with the egg. They knew, or he knew. Why would he let the child go with him? That's a very interesting question, right? If he knew what the Mando was about to get into, why the hell would he allow the child to go down there with him? Knowing that he could get in some big time trouble, hurt, etc. Love this stuff, man. Obviously a big reveal here very shortly. For the first time in the season, we get this one of the big question marks up until this point answered. Very eerie, going into a dark cave. Nice little side helmet cam, seeing some bones. Not cam, flashlight. I don't know what they call them in the Star Wars world. Maybe they call them cams in Star Wars world. Who knows? And now hearing the growl of the Mudhorn. Not knowing that he's literally staring at the Mudhorn. Distant shots of the blaster. Love it. Chest piece already blown to pieces. Somehow, and then you see the first look at the Mudhorn. And I'll say this too. While I'm watching this, such a great look for this creature. Like the concept artist and the people who developed this creature, an incredibly good looking creature in this world, specifically for this setting, and it being the Mudhorn and then being in a mud pit and all that stuff. It just makes sense. Also, so real looking. The Mudhorn turns himself to boom. Using that flamethrower, the wrist flamethrower again. Now he's officially out of it. Doesn't really have a whole lot of weaponry to him right now. Totally getting his ass kicked, might I add. Oh, just being absolute tortured by this thing. Now officially being knocked out, going to a haze, not really know what's going on. But it's all for a purpose in this episode, right? This is the moment that changed the entire game, right? A simple episode, not a whole lot of dialogue happening in this episode, but a moment that changed everything. The Mandalorian is about to be taken down by this monster. He has no chance. Absolutely no. He's pulling a knife from his calf here, ready to take it down by hand. And little do we know, Baby Yo, the child, stepping in big for this guy and using the Force. Boom. Absolutely mind-blowing, the fact that this little thing, although he's being 50 years old, right? We don't know how they age yet. Picking up this gigantic beast. And then that great score kicks in. Amazing. And then Mando looking back at him like, what is going on? And like I mentioned earlier, he doesn't know what the Force is. He doesn't know what's being used here or what's happening. He just knows that I'm alive and this little thing helped me. And the first time we see the child pass out. And then a knife to the throat. And I'll say this, and if Brian is still watching, I'll say this. The second this episode ended in our review for Apocalypse, I had said that the Mudhorn would be the Mandalorian signet. That would be his symbol, his crest as a clan going forward. Because as we learned in the first episode, the armorer had asked, "Has your signet been revealed?" And he said, "No, not yet." It only made sense that this would be the signet, and that's what Mandalorian signets are. You know, they're creatures or, maybe a plant life. I mean, look at Boba Fett. It's very different, right? Very interesting compared to a lot of other ones. The Mudhorn made sense for this character after what he just went through, not just killing the beast, but also capturing something like the egg for the Jawas. Also, a very weird looking egg, hairy egg. But again, to that creative team behind the development of this stuff, bravo. Absolutely bravo. And then we see him coming over the cliffside. And just one of the best reveals of this episode. Mando goes through all this stuff, right? Obviously, he's doing this to get his stuff back. But the Jawas want this egg. We didn't know what for at this point. But then we just see the leader of the Jawas slice it open and they just start eating it. Slice the top right open and they start drinking. Like, it's just a little party thing for him. It's so good. Also, a very clean cut, I might add. Just a total Jawa thing to do. Just a total Jawa thing to do. Again, those blurgs, workhorses. Tiny still passed out from using the Force. and more dialogue, noting to the idea that they don't know what the Force is. I still don't know what. I still don't understand what that is. I mean, they have no idea. They're so far out there, and it's it's set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Luke is off somewhere in a distant place. Whether it's training young Jedi or just on some kind of adventure away from this world. Them not knowing what it is or what to do. And a great little montage of them going to work, putting the ship back together. Queel, just like a blurg, is such a workhorse. Just such a great character. And does great justice to the Ugnaught species. Being that the only time we really get to see the Ugnaughts are, as slaves on Cloud City. As far as canon goes. And somehow the Razor Crest gets back to perfectly normal. Not to say that I'm not saying that they can't do it. But, it's just, coincidence. I guess Queel's just that good. He's just that good. And there's the first note of Queel's backstory. I have worked a lifetime to be free. Knowing, and we'll learn it later on, but also knowing at this point, if you're into the Star Wars lore, what the Ugnaughts are, right? They're, for the most part, their species are slaves. They're workers. And we saw that in the Empire Strikes Back on Cloud City. Dun-dun. Somehow his chest piece is okay. Wonder how. I imagine that's all because of Queel. But that won't matter much longer. And so it truly begins. As we see the Razor Crested space, just beautiful. And again, this all being on a giant screen in a soundstage in Los Angeles, which is just absolutely amazing. Shocking, but amazing. Him trying to wake Tiny up. No possible way this thing's waking up after using what he just did. Or doing what he just did, excuse me. I mean, he lifted a mudhorn. Do you know how much that thing probably weighs? Oh, there he is. Such a great episode as it finishes here. Such a great episode. A very underrated episode. As I mentioned up top, a very underrated episode. And I'll let this play as I see the concept art. And as you guys can see, I'm using that as my thumbnails for these episodes. It's a simple episode with a very simple premise, but in the long run, as the season goes on, there's a lot of callbacks to this specific episode, right? First time seeing him use the Force. realizing that the Mandalorian doesn't know what that is, learning a little bit about Queel was doing beforehand, before he's kind of on his own. Jawa is on a different planet. Obviously, the callback to the Mudhorn being Mando's signet down the line. I mean, there's so many callbacks to this episode later on in the season. That's why it's so important. And Rick Famuyiwa, again, proving that he can do something in this world that doesn't require things like the Jedi or, popular stuff in the Star. Like, we had never heard of a Mudhorn, or we had really no backstory or idea what the Ugnaughts had really done or were, right? Answering the question of, Mando with the Force, and just also answering questions about the galaxy in general at this point, right? 5 years away from Return of the Jedi, it might not just be Queel and Mando not knowing what the Force is. It could be the majority of people in the galaxy not knowing what the Force is. We don't know. Maybe that story will be told one day, maybe not. I'm not sure. But the fact of the matter is that Rick Famuyiwa did exactly what he needed to do in the episode that he was required to do. He set up things for down the road, and he moved the story forward like he was supposed to. Not at an extremely fast pace, not at a slow pace. I know that a lot of people I had talked to or just read about, saying that this isn't their favorite episode. Not that it was bad, but just middle of the pack. I think it's one of the better episodes, personally. I think it's really good. Rick Famuyiwa is an indie director at heart. That's what he does. He does movies and stories on very small budgets. That he's a character director, right? Story director. And that shows in this episode. And so, and it shows again down the line as well. He does isolated stories very well. And those are the two episodes that he happened to have in season 1. So I don't remember or not if he's coming back for season 2. I'll have to check up on that. I would love to see him back. But if he doesn't come back, I'd love to see him in the world of Star Wars in general do something different, because I think he's just brilliant, whether it be Star Wars or maybe something like Marvel. The DC thing clearly didn't work out because he was supposed to do Flash. That didn't happen. But I think he did exactly what he was supposed to do. And he set up someone like Deborah Chow to absolutely just take the reins in episode 3 and 7, both times, to blow it out of the water. So with that said, that is this episode for the Whiskey Jedi this week, guys. To everyone joining me in watching live, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All my Schmodown fellow fans, thanks for joining me and stepping up and checking me out for a little while. I appreciate it. Checking out Mandalorian episode 2 of season 1, The Child. And also highlighting PB&W Peanut Butter Whiskey today. You can see the bottle again right there on the left-hand side as I point that way, which I got to write again. But a very, very fun whiskey, guys. If you're if you're just a whiskey fan in general, or you want to try something with a lot of flavor, I highly recommend checking out this whiskey and giving it a chance. It's perfect. It's really nice. It's different from a lot of stuff, and I can't recommend it enough. So go ahead and check that out. For now, this is the Whiskey Jedi podcast. Again, thank you so much for joining me. As far as where you can find the show, if you're watching on YouTube, the show lives on YouTube. Here every week doing. For now, I'm doing Mandalorian rewatches. I'm talking all kinds of Star Wars news. You'll see me in the near future, possibly playing some games on here. As today specifically, 2 brand new trailers for both Squadrons and Lego Star Wars were released, and you will definitely be seeing those games on this channel in the future. So if you are not already, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're following me, and that way you know exactly what I'm doing every week. And when the shows go live, you can check it out. You can also find the show on audio on Apple and Spotify, as well as Anchor and Google. Anywhere that you can find a podcast, really, I'll be living there. And I appreciate you hitting that follow there as well and subscribing. As far as myself, you can find myself on Twitter and Instagram at Qui-Gon Jake right there down below. 2 N's because someone else took it before me. And so, follow me there. I'm doing all kinds of stuff with podcasting and talking movies and sports and just having fun on social media. So, again, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. You can check out the Whiskey Jedi every week. The last 2 Thursdays, typically try it on Wednesdays, but just, again, follow me everywhere and you'll know exactly when they're coming. So, as always, thank you so much for joining me, and may the Force be with you.